Hello and welcome to another episode of the Simon and Friends podcast. I'm Simon Shortt. Joining me this week is Ben Parker. Ben, how you doing?
Man, I'm doing great. Hello to the audience, as always. And Simon, it is a pleasure. We are loaded. We have so much to talk about. We're going to pack it to one little itty bitty episode, but I can't wait, man.
Ben's face just lit up because we've been on Zoom for about 90 minutes doing a bunch of other stuff for box score and the network and but just before I hit record, I took my first sip of coffee since 3 p.m. and he chuckled at that. And then I started talking at 2x speed immediately as soon as it hit my lips. And here we are, man. It is draft season. We are drinking coffee at 11 p.m. Do not judge. And with that, Ben, let's go ahead and just get right into our War Room series. We are covering the South divisions this week. We're finally going to talk about the team with the first overall pick. Several teams here in the top 10 of the draft. Um, Ben, you are cosplaying as the GM, and this is great because their GM, Mike Borgonzi, right, coming over from the Chiefs. I mean, this was tailor made for you coming over from the Chiefs organization, trying to put your spin on this Titans organization. You be the GM for the Tennessee Titans. What is your war room plan? What is your draft plan for Tennessee this year in the draft?
Let me just hit the quarterback thing right away, okay? And then I'll walk back through all the stuff we usually hit. If nobody talks us out of it, okay, we'll go ahead and draft Cam Ward. And by talk us out of it, I mean we don't find anybody in our own football room who's like, nah, Cam's really not the real deal here, not really worth this number one overall pick. And by talk us out of it, I mean nobody else is coming up with a big enough trade offer to make us willing to wait a year on quarterback while we restock a lot of other roster spots, which we could certainly use, right? So if neither of those things are happening, if everybody in the room's like, yeah, Cam looks legit, maybe not superstar, but legit, we can work with that. We can move forward with that. We can plan with that, and nobody else makes the offer, then Cam Ward's going to be our pick right there. That's just kind of where I'm at. I think that's where the Titans are, and I think that's probably where they've been for weeks and weeks, but wanted to definitely do their homework and see what else might pop, right? Um, so anyway, let me go back through some more technical things. Dang it, they have invested so well in the offensive line, and yet it hasn't paid off. I preach to him so much about build your line, and the Titans have done it, but it hasn't paid off. The guys just boy, they've got first round picks, third round picks, sixth round picks. They have tried. Some of it's working. It's not a complete disaster, but some of it's not. And maybe next year we'll see some of these young guys because when you got that many, right, you can expect somebody to continue to move forward.
Hmm.
So it's almost like they're drafting and not developing because you could say, well, they're not drafting correctly. They're drafting guys other people wanted. Okay,
Yep.
and when you draft that many, some of them are going to hit no matter what. So it feels like they're just not developing, but I think they will do more of that. Fantastic defensive tackle group. Goodness gracious, just a tremendous defensive tackle group. I really, really enjoy them. Um, I really got excited and wanted to build this defense, and that's one reason for the Cam Ward note back up at the top. I was like, man, I love this draft for building the Titans defense. I really do.
Hmm.
I've always lacked a vision for the Titans, to be honest. You've known that. That's why always kind of handed them off to you. But I looked at it this year and I'm studying it. I'm like, man, I would love to use this draft to build the defense. I'd love to draft a big edge, not just a quick one, but a big one to go on the other side of was it Arden
Yep.
over
Arden
there?
Key. Hmm.
Yeah,
Yep.
I would love to draft a big edge like a Shamar Stewart and just plant him on the other side and have
Hmm.
them kind of interplay off each other. I'd love to have some fast, smart linebackers. Well, there's a couple of those in this draft, not blazing fast, but just good, working, fast linebackers. Um, and then I'd love to get a couple of top-notch cover corners to drop in there at some point too. I mean, that stuff's all there in this draft.
Yep.
And if you were to, in a football building sense, if we, the Titans, were to get out of the number one spot with Cam Ward and move back to say 4, 5, 6 and get those extra picks, we could then do a lot more of that defense building, right?
Yep.
Be that as it may, more than likely what's going to happen is we're going to draft Cam Ward number one overall, and then we would like to see about getting him somebody else to throw the football to in rounds 2 or 3. So that's kind of I think what's going to happen, which isn't in some ways isn't as exciting. But man, if the quarterback's sitting there and you get them, that's hard to move off of. So, by the way, there's too many needs on this team for one off season. You're just not going to fix them all. They're not going to happen. Here are some of those needs: quarterback number one, wide receiver number two. I've got four defensive positions listed as four-way tie for third. Okay. I'd love to upgrade edge. I'd love to upgrade linebacker. I'd love to upgrade safety. I'd love to upgrade cornerback a little bit. It's not that all these positions are terrible. They're not. But boy, you just got kind of obvious fall offs. I'll put it that way. Talent fall offs in every one of these position groups.
Hmm.
And I would really love to fix that. That's one reason I got so excited about fixing the defense. But that may have to wait while we get a quarterback and somebody to throw the football to. What kind of draft picks they've got? Number one overall, of course, then number 35. And then there's a little bit of a fall off there to 103,
Oh yeah.
120. Huge talent difference there by the time you get to 103, but still workable guys there. 141 and then 167, 178, 188. So you got picks to work with. They could trade up and down the board if they wanted to. Um, I'm not going to include as many draft prospects for Tennessee tonight. Number one, because we've mentioned so many of them over the
Yeah.
past two, podcasts. I already mention Shamar Stewart, but that's what I think is going to happen. If it were me, we draft Cam Ward number one overall, and at number 35, we take a real serious look at getting him another guy to throw the football to. I've always thought Luther Burden in Tennessee would be a good fit.
Mm.
I expect him to kind of be somewhere around that 35 range. Maybe he's not there, but if not, there's other guys. And if it's, I kind of hate to wait all the way to 103 to get a wide receiver because a whole bunch of them are going to be gone by then, I think. So maybe we take pick 103 and move back up into pick 70 range, to try to get us
Hmm.
somebody to throw the football to if we can't get it at 35. But that's about what we're looking at there if we're Tennessee. Would love to build the defense, but this may not be the year to do it since we got the number one overall pick and we'll take Cam Ward.
Yeah, I mean everything screen. Let me be head coach. I always get them confused. Brian, Bill, which one's the head
It's easy
coach?
to
Which
do.
one's the
Yeah.
dad?
It's,
Brian
yeah.
is the dad, or Brian's the head coach. So let me be Brian Callahan. Thank you, thank you for taking Cam Ward because you, as the incoming GM, you have more security than I, the head coach, who got the head coaching job because I believed in Will Levis, and by week 3 was cursing out Will Levis and telling the media he sucked. So thank you for taking the quarterback because I get to try this again, um, and not having me take Will Levis through another season while you have Abdul Carter and you look like a genius because he's really good and he gets 7 sacks as a rookie. And thank you for also saying wide receiver at 35 because yeah, I need that. Don't invest in that. Let Mike Vrabel take all his defensive players in New England. Um, Let me build this offense. Thank you for spending money on Dan Moore Jr. so I can put J.C. Latham at his natural position at right tackle. Thanks for going to
Right.
get Kevin Zeitler. Um, and now we're talking Calvin Ridley, 35th overall pick. Chigaquanko. I mean, that's still not very good, but let's put a
I
run
know.
game here behind this offensive line. Um, Give me Cam Ward, who can stand in the pocket, make every throw, has some real potential. But listen, I rule with pocket quarterbacks, man. I did this with Joe Burrow. Like we can do this. Give me one of these tight ends later in the draft. Um, yeah, you are feeling the effects of the couple trades they've made, right? Not having those mid round picks. I think that has to do. Did they move up for Devondre Sweat a little bit, and then the L'Jarius Sneed pick? I think trade from last year was one of these picks that they're missing. So certainly a big drop off. I'm going to ask you this, and I know we don't want to go through a million names because we've been doing names this whole time, but I just watched 9 wide receivers in the last 3 days. So let me talk about this day 2 range of receivers. If Luther Burden is gone before 35, is there another receiver you like at 35? Are you transitioning to a new position there? Or you mentioned trading back potentially. Or no, you kind of mentioned trading up. Do you prefer the trade back route and take one of these receivers maybe in the late 40s, whether it's Jaden Higgins from Iowa State, a Trey Harris, Mississippi, something like that, or even shift your focus to wide receiver later in the draft? If Burden isn't there for that 35th pick, what do you think your move is at 35?
More than likely, it's going to be figure out a way to maybe. Okay, I hate to say trade back because everybody and their brother's saying trade back on everything, right? But if the guy we like at 35 isn't there, then we trade back and maybe get some kind of a pick. Maybe we do a combo where we trade out of 35 and 103 and turn that into like I don't know, maybe a 50 and an 80, right? Where we could still grab a defensive player and a wide receiver somewhere in that those two slots, 50 and 80. If I actually do think because you know how there's windows for teams that need certain positions. So if there's windows for teams that really want wide receivers in this draft, I think by the time we get to 35, I think some receiver we like is going to be there. Whether it's a Matthew Golden or an Abuka or a Luther Burden sitting there at the 35 spot, I think would be maybe the three. If they're not, well, Alec Iomanor too as well. Maybe one of those three or four kind of guys. If they're not there, then it's probably, hey, let's figure out a way to get into that 70 to 80 range and get somewhere in the, I don't know, Isaiah Bond, Savion Williams, kind of a mixture. That's kind
Hmm.
of what we'd be aiming for.
Yeah, I think your idea makes sense. One, because you have another fourth round pick. You have pick 120.
Right.
So taking that top pick in the fourth round, 103, taking pick 35 in the second round, trying to move down in the second and pick up a third, I think you can absolutely do. Um, okay, so yeah, Isaiah Bond, give you a little field stretching speed. Um, I'll just go ahead and drop a name because I don't know if I have him really anywhere tonight. But I looked at all these day two receivers, and I just want to. We did my guys awards last week with Peyton. I hadn't watched this guy yet. He definitely would have been one of mine. Jaden Higgins out of Iowa State's a dog, just a dog, just a MFer, man. 6'4", 210, will block, runs routes, good hands, good after the catch. I mean, just a dog. So I mean, I would literally take him at 35 if I was Tennessee, but I get the idea of moving back a little bit. Um, but there could be good defenders in that range too for sure. But I like the idea of yeah moving around a little bit, trying to pick up a third round pick because that's a big gap beginning of the second round. Go all the way through the second, all the way through the third, all the way through the comp picks of the third, top of the fourth. That's a really big gap. So if you can narrow that a little bit in a draft like this, I think that's a good move.
Yeah, agreed. When you're going all the way through the comp picks of the third, and I to me, and again, I stand to change my mind, but based on what I've seen, somewhere from pick 75 to 90, I think there's a huge drop off to me in
Mhm.
talent in this particular draft. I haven't yet located exactly where that's going to be because teams see things differently, but somewhere in there. So by the time you're sitting back at 103, I feel like the guys you're looking at versus even 75 is drastically different.
And like that's the chunk where there's like a lot of good third tier defensive tackles, but like you said, like you strong defensive tackle group in Tennessee, but
Right.
you're getting thin at edge rusher there, you're getting thin at corner there in that range. So if you can get in just before that drop off happens, that would be good. All right. I have nothing for you on ownership. They don't care what's going on. So just Brian Callahan is just thankful to get some offensive help. Let's go to the Jaguars. I told you I was going to go Texans first, but we're looking at dumpster fire rosters here. The Jaguars are a sneaky, terrible roster, and I know that it shouldn't be that sneaky. They have the fifth overall pick, but so much of last year was like coaching, coaching, coaching. Right? We were just looking at Doug Peterson every week, at Press Taylor every week, being like, "This is a mess. What are you guys doing?" But that was so overshadowing the fact that this roster just isn't very good. So here I am. I'm the new. I'm like Ben. I'm cosplaying as a younger person right now because their GM I think has just turned 30. This hasn't happened before in the history of the War Room series. So here we are, big day. Um, we're going best player available with the first couple picks. It's easy. The roster's pretty ugly the more you look at it. Quarterback, wide receiver one, edge rushers, corner one, linebacker, set. You have five starters mapped out on the offensive line, but you can improve just about every single one of those positions in this draft at some point in the draft if you really wanted to. Running back is TBD. I'm happy to let ETN get a shot with Liam Cohen for a year, even though it's a good running back class. But ETN was solid and just kind of fell out of favor with Peterson. We also drafted Tank Bigsby not long ago. I'm willing to let Liam Cohen work with those guys because Look, Bucky Irving was great last year. So let's see what he does with ETN. I don't need to invest in a running back, even though I have picks 5, 36, 70, 88, 107, 126, 142, 182, 194, 221. I have a lot of picks. At fifth overall, or let me just say, wide receiver and corner two, defensive tackle, and offensive line. Those are my priorities. And I have four picks in the top 88. So I'd like to stack those four positions with my first four picks because that's in that top 90, so we think we can get good players somewhere in that range at each of those positions. So if we
Tell me those four
assume
again, real quick. Sorry.
wide receiver, corner, defensive tackle, offensive line. So if we assume Cam Ward, Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter, and now Shadur Sanders are gone in the top four, right? You get the two quarterbacks, you get the two blue chippers. Then I'm likely choosing between Armand Membu, Will Campbell, Mason Graham, Ted McMillan, and Ashton Jonty for my pick at five. Like I said, I'm giving ETN another shot, but I had to mention him as one of the highest players on my board. If I'm going with offensive line, I would lean Membu just because I think availability. Like if for some reason the Patriots wanted to take an offensive lineman, I think Will Campbell would be more likely their pick. But also I just paid Walker Little, who's my left tackle. So I'll put Membu on the right side. I could play him at guard. I can switch him and Anton Harrison, but I need a little more help on the right side of the line. We've made some moves at wide receivers, but I love Tet. But I do think this has to stick to the trenches. So I'm really choosing between Membu and Mason Graham here. Now let's look at the combo picks. Let's look at what can I get at 5 and 36 if I went offensive line and defensive line with those first two picks. First round, if I go with Membu at 5, I'm looking at maybe Darius Alexander, kind of an athletic, big, one gapping guy, or Tyler Williams from Ohio State, good run stopper, two gapper guy, completely different styles. But I could get a decent defensive tackle. But if we go Graham at 5, we're looking at maybe Donovan Jackson or Jonas Avainae at 36. Or waiting around, let me throw you a wild card. I did mention him in here. I did write this. We could take Jaden Higgins or what name did I just say? Did I say the right name? Yeah, I have Matthew Golden syndrome. I think I'm getting all these receiver names wrong. Anyways, or we get Jaden Higgins at 36, or we get Trey Amos at 36. And then we can come back to O line at 70, which I'm interested in. That was a lot of names. I like the combo picks. What can we do in the first round? What can we do in the second round? But I'm gonna go with Mason Graham. He's just straight up higher on my board. I think he's a more quote unquote sure thing than a Membu. And I do have a workable offensive line for a year, and I can still add pieces to that. I think there's value in offensive line later in the draft, and defensive tackle is good, but I think the chasm between what I know I'm going to get in Graham to what I might get in the fourth round, third round at defensive tackle versus what I'm hoping I get from Membu, but what I know I can get from Donovan Jackson or Wyatt Milam or Ariante Ursary, I'm gonna take that. So I'm gonna go Graham in the first round, and I'm gonna come back in the second round, and I think I'm gonna take Trey Amos. I really like Trey Amos, and we've been starved for the second corner. The safeties have been overturned on the roster for years. And corner, we've talked about this, but runs thinnest, the fastest of these positions, I think. So I think if I wait till 70, I might be without a corner again on this roster across from Tyson Campbell. And I'm assuming Savon Ravel and Harrison won't be there. So I'm going to take Amos at I'm going to try to take Amos at 36. 70, I'm looking at a wide receiver. It's going to be a speedy guy. Isaiah Bond, his slipping down boards. You mentioned him before. Jalen Noel, the other Iowa State slot receiver. I think he'd be a good fit there. And then 88, take a swing on an offensive lineman there. If one of these guards is here, let me see who might that be. I mean, it could even be Jared Wilson. I could even take Jared Wilson as a center here. I think that would be pretty good. But could Tate Ratledge be here? But Charles Grant, if I get Charles Grant in as a swing tackle, let him kind of be that Gadecki role that the Bucks had last year. Now under Liam Cohen. Um, is Emory Jones here, a tackle from LSU who might have to play guard. There's some names down there at the bottom of the third that I still like on the offensive line. 107, I'm looking at another defensive tackle, and then I have another five picks after that. Take swings everywhere. Still defensive back, still in the trenches. Can I get a tight end somewhere on this team after Evan Ingram is gone? So there's a lot I could do here, but really the thing at the top, like Mason Graham, need to fix the middle of that defensive line. Good edge rushers, good linebackers. Need to stick Mason Graham in there. Trey Amos. So I'm going defense, even though there's arguments there for the offense. But I think the value of where the board is going to fall is going to lean on going defense early, offense later. All right, Ben, what do you got for me? Whoever you're going to be, incoming coach Liam Cohen. Can we get a Duval? How are we looking?
I'm Ben, and I want to talk football, and I want to tell you about your plan and how I do like it. But the phone just rang, and it's Liam Cohen. He has an opinion, and he's very strong on it that he would like for you to change. But before he can
Yeah.
give his opinion, Shad Khan just called in, and he has an
Oh my God.
opinion that he really wants to to ring in on here.
The line is off the hook. Okay,
Yes,
great.
yes,
I'm not
yes. There's a
overwhelmed at all as a
no.
14-year-old first time GM. And it's the Jaguars too. And draft day, man. It rings true. Literally every year.
All right. I'm by far the most important guy in the building here.
Right.
I'm
Yeah, I will
John
I will take
Kahn.
your call first. Yep.
Yes. So,
Absolutely.
Sean Kahn here. I'm glad to have everybody here. But listen, Travis Hunter, man. See, I take my team over to England a lot, and
hmm
we may not be very good. I hope we're very good for too long, but in the meantime, love to have a flashy player, a two-way player. We could show him
hmm
off everywhere, get on TV a little bit more. We talked about a little bit more. So what do you think about Travis Hunter here? If he's available, maybe he don't slip to us, but if he is, it's kind of a little endorsement here for Travis
Oh yeah,
Hunter.
if he's at five, like throw all this other stuff out the window.
Okay.
And I mean, really, with what we talked about, like if the quarterbacks go 1-2, and if the Patriots, I wish we weren't saving the Patriots till the end because I do want to rip them, but they've put themselves in a position that they have to take an offensive lineman. So just by that, the math would indicate that Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter is going to be there at five. And I don't know how you pass on either of them, even though there's Trayvon Walker and Josh Hines Allen in the building. Maybe you put Abdul in a like a Micah Parsons rookie season role where he's like kind of off ball, but like he will rush rotationally on third down, or he's just a blitzing linebacker that you move all around. Yeah, if one of those two guys is there, you do that. But especially Travis Hunter. I would
Especially
even
Travis,
I would
right.
even trade up for Travis Hunter. Probably. I mean, I don't know what it would cost because let's say the Giants were going to take Abdul Carter. Let's say the Patriots already know, they're like, we really want an offensive lineman, but Hunter might be too good to pass up. But if I could trade 5 and 70 for Hunter, I'm double dipping. I'm getting a corner two and a wide receiver two potentially right there. So I'm fine with spending that extra third round pick to move up, swap with the Patriots, and then at 36, I could just take an offensive lineman there.
All right, so Travis Hunter is our first round pick, and we've got that settled.
Okay, great, done. Yeah.
Yeah, you're doing a great job. Love it. I'll talk to you later. Bye. I
Okay.
got wrestling programs to go check out. Okay. So, uh,
Now hitting
I'm
the
Liam
call
Cohen
waiting
now.
button for Liam Cohen. Great.
Yes, call waiting for Liam Cohen. Hey, I'm Liam Cohen. Tell Shot it didn't work out. They were asking too much. Okay,
All
so
right. Okay.
yes. All right,
Can you tell
Travis
him?
Hunter thing.
I don't want to tell him.
Because I do like Travis. I mean, everybody loves Travis, but listen, Armand Membu is the guy that I really want here. Okay,
Mm,
I've got I think I can work my magic and get this quarterback's career revived. But if I
hmm
can't, I need a backup plan. And that backup plan is a running game, which I'm pretty good at installing. And Membo is really going to help with all that. Traps, pulls, zone blocking, you name it. I can put him in almost any position. So as the line changes over the next couple of seasons, I can move him around. I really need this guy. Okay, so you know, let's try to smooth that over with Shad somehow. Me and you together, right? Me and you working together. Okay, we'll take care of Shad somehow. But Armand Member. That's who I need. I need him. I need Member.
The easiest answer and the issue with that is I have Mason Graham third on my board, and I have Armand Mambu eighth on my board. So at some point, the board has to dictate what's happening. And also, this is what the GM would say. This is what we're paying Trevor Lawrence for, right? Make the offensive line work with what you got. We just signed two guys in free agency. We paid Robert Hainsey $7 million a year for some reason. Um, make the offensive line work for another year.
I was hoping I wouldn't have to pull this out,
Oh,
but
shoot.
do I need to repeat who I am and how I got to the Jacksonville Jaguars? I'm Liam Cohen, and I got the former GM out so I could be here. They wanted me that bad. So, I might suggest you might just want to relook at your overall board, before we get to the real draft.
In the Jaguars' defense, Twitter got the former GM fired. Because I'm sure Liam Cohen in that first meeting said, I would like this guy out. And Khan said no. And then Twitter bullied them. Shout out to Twitter because it's Twitter.
Ball.
People, there it is. All right. Um,
All right, glad we got that settled. So we're gonna be
yeah,
taking Armand Membo first, and you're doing a great job. Keep it up.
we've got Travis Hunter. We've got Armand Membu. Got it. This is working out.
All right,
Drafting's
talk to you
easy.
later.
This
I
is
got
great.
I
All
got
right,
a
see you. Yeah.
I got some golf to go play. All right, see you.
Okay. Good.
All right, all right. I'm back.
So now
I'm
Ben's
in.
here. Okay.
Yes. Listen, there's a lot of voices going on inside the building, but I like the plan here. Okay, I like your plan. Your plan makes sense because I think I personally I'm not as big on the end of the spectrum as far as stacking picks, right?
Hmm.
I think you do that, and I've heard a lot of other people that I listen to, good people, who do more of the stacking picks. But I actually think for Jacksonville, a team like Jacksonville, who does have a series of holes, right,
Yeah.
where they could go in multiple directions, and in a draft like this, where you do have these pools of players that you can reasonably expect. You're not saying, well, we got this one wide receiver that we want in the second round, so we're going to not draft a receiver in the first round, so we get the receiver in the second round, right? No, it's, hey, there's pools of players sitting there that we reasonably
Hmm.
expect if we were to swap would be there. So when you're talking about that defensive, several different ways to do it. When you're talking about Mason Graham in the first round, and then you're talking about a different position group that you're looking at in that second round, and then stacking that with that third round and then the fourth round, I think all that makes sense. It's a good chain there, and it's not a stretch, right? It's, hey, if we were to go Mimbo in the first or Hunter in the first, and we want a defensive tackle in that early second round, there's defensive tackles there. Like, they're not going to go in the late first. It's going to be two, three, four guys that we kind of have our pick from in the early second round, right? And whether that's Tyler
Hmm.
Williams or Darius Alexander or whoever, there are guys there. So it all makes perfect sense to me. I think that's a really good, it's malleable is the word. Instead of having plans A through Z, you really just have a good plan that is flexible no matter what. And so no matter which way the board falls, you're like, yes, here's this, here's this, here's this. I think that's a really good working plan there. So I like it. I don't know that I even
Let
have any
me
questions. I think we've hit you with enough questions, honestly.
let me hit you with a full first four pick
Okay.
stack and hear what you think.
Yeah.
Again, because I went deep on these wide receivers. So let me flex this a little bit. So tell me which of these drafts you like better. I'm telling you that, like, I come from the future. I'm like, these are the two scenarios you can have for the Jaguars. Armand Membu, Tyleik Williams, Isaiah Bond, Denzel Burke. All right, so that's a right tackle, right guard, whatever you want to put Membu at, a defensive tackle, a wide receiver, and then a corner.
Okay.
Or Mason Graham, Trey Amos, Jared Wilson, center out of Georgia, and then let's say Savion Williams, wide receiver out of TCU. Which
It's
one do you
close.
like better?
It's close, but I think it's awfully close. I'll tell you where it got tricky for me.
Ben likes his
Um,
better. He likes Membu better.
well, I tried to cut that out. That is true, but I tried to cut that out of my head. The Trey Amos pick, because there are several CBs, I do like, and I just haven't gotten to where I'm convinced Trey Amos is that guy. But still, I like that second one better as a stack. And what especially convinced me of it was when you said Denzel Burke as the fourth pick, because
Hmm.
you mentioned this. I think when you started the Jaguars segment here, cornerback runs out so darn
Hmm.
fast in this draft. By the time you get to like 75, I think they're gone, right?
Yep.
I
Yep.
mean,
Yep.
if you want one, you better grab one somewhere in the top 50,
Yeah.
because
Hmm.
they may not be there after. I think that's a very salient point.
Yeah. Darian Porter has shot up boards because of his combine, which we knew was going to happen, but he was like a
Yes.
comp pick in the third round guy as a project corner, and now he's like a could be a second round pick. There's
Yes.
a large cluster, which I'm going to hope to watch before the draft. If you go on mock draft database, between 99 and 142, there's about 8 or 9 guys there, including Denzel Burke, who we've talked about on this pod.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that I'm going to hope to watch because I hope I can find one more guy. Kind of, Kobe Durant from Kansas uh, a guy that a lot of people know. So I'm hoping to find a couple more people in in that range. So if you have to go into the fourth round, there's a guy or two you could get there. But as of right now, yeah, it runs out quick. All right, let's go to the what's your other South team? The Indianapolis Colts. Ben, you have finally supplanted Chris Ballard, another one of your you actually like Ballard. So
I
you're
like
doing
Ballard. Yeah.
you're doing
Yeah.
another one of yours you're taking over for a guy you respect here. What's your draft plan for the Indianapolis Colts?
Our first move is trade out of the first and second round and have 4 third round picks, 10 fourth round picks, and 7 fifth round picks. Okay.
All right, good call. Sounds good.
All right. All right. I do like Ballard. I think they should keep him, but he does things differently than I do, and that's okay. Um, where do I start here? Let's just hit the draft picks real quick. So they got number 14 overall, which I think is a good spot to be
Hmm.
in. They've got number 45, which I still think is a good spot. Number 80, which to me is right on that fringe, but I
Yeah.
still figure by the time I calculate that people all see players differently, I still think there's going to be maybe 4 or 5 players I like at 80, is what I'm
Hmm.
thinking. Um, Pick 117, 151, 189, 232. Oddly enough, yeah, because they've just got one pick in each round. So Ballard's going to be doing something there for
Hmm.
sure.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, Needs. Let's hit their needs real quick. You know what? Let me read off through the notes here. So with those defensive back free agent signings that I won't go into now, the Colts can draft in a lot of directions. Actually, I
Yep.
I was banging on them for their secondary for the past couple of off seasons,
Hmm.
and I do not think or claim that they fixed it, but boy, did they upgrade. And instead of having kind of this experience slash athleticism talent shortfall obvious there, now you've got two adults in the room and you've got it mixed with some of the young guys that you have
Yep.
put it back there. And I think that's a nice mix. So if you don't feel like the guy you want is sitting where you are drafting, then you don't have to move on that, right?
Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
so it creates that balance, which a lot of GMs are doing these days anyway before they get to the draft. I would love a tight end. Tyler
Hmm.
Warren, Colston Loveland, Fannin out of Bowling Green. I'm looking at a first round or a third round there, I guess. But
Yep.
boy, I would love to grab a tight end. I just think it would help out whoever plays quarterback for me, which I still want it to be Anthony Richardson. I'm still planning for it to be Anthony Richardson. I think having a tight end open would help him out a good bit. I really want that. Um, I think we're probably happy at offensive line for now. Let me read off my projected starting offensive line and see what you
Right.
think.
I was gonna ask you this.
Raymond at left tackle,
Hmm.
Quentin Nelson at left guard, Bordolini at center, either Goncalves or Tucker at right guard, and then Braden Smith at right tackle. You see it any differently than that?
Yeah, I was gonna ask if Goncalves was gonna get in there. I was gonna ask if Blake Freeland was in the mix there.
Okay.
Dalton Tucker, I don't know much about, but yeah, he seems like the front runner. But they've got some names.
Yeah.
Where'd Danny Pinter go? Did they release him in the last 2 days? Because he was
I
on here. They
honestly
must have
can't
released
remember.
him.
I saw his
Oh no,
name
there he
last
is.
week.
There he is. Nope, I
Okay.
found him. I was like, that guy's just been there since forever, since I started doing this. Um, yeah, they've got a gaggle. We'll go with a gaggle of names they could throw there at right guard this year. Um, but Braden Smith reworked his deal. He could be in the last year of his he could be in the last year of his career, basically. Um, so then you get into the mix of like what are Goncaves and Freeland. But I think for this year, yeah, you're in decent shape.
Yeah, and by the way, again, if the guy we like is sitting there, we'll draft him.
Mhm.
That's not going to stop us. But if we need to draft somewhere else, I feel like we could work this offensive line and do decently at it. My final note here was before I get into the prospects here. Tight end might be the number one need, but it would be real
Mhm.
hard. It's going to be real hard for me to pass on defense in this first round. I mean, it just is. Even though we've addressed it, and I like our defensive tackles. I like one of our linebackers. I like the fact that we have a pretty decent secondary mix now.
Mhm.
I feel like we have one potential edge spot that I feel pretty good about, but the other edge still there. I still looking at the defensive players sitting there at 14. I'm going to have a real hard time passing on them. Dang it, I'm going to have a hard time. So that tight end, that's one reason I'm thinking maybe Fannin in the late second, early third round, wherever he falls. So
Mhm.
here's some draft prospects. This is less of a plan and more of just a kind of a roadmap, if you will. First round, best defensive player available, and that's safety, edge, linebacker. I would go any of the three. There are players there that I really like, and I think it's important. We could take on a player who's maybe not truly polished,
Mhm.
because I think we do have a good defensive outlay here for them to grow up in and work around. You get to the second round, that's probably where I'm going to look at tight end. Um, start looking at tight end. If it's not tight end, it's going to be again best defensive player available. So don't be surprised if we go defense in
Yep.
rounds 1 and 2. You get to the third round. I'm thinking early third round is where I may have to move to. But whether it's Mason Taylor, Elijah Arroyo, or Fannin, some
Mhm.
mix, I would love to grab one of those guys. Okay.
Mhm.
You get into rounds 4 through 7. Probably defense again. There's a guy named Jonas Sanker from Virginia who I don't think he's a Pro Bowl in the making ever, but I do think he could be a serviceable safety for a while. I like him. Maybe in the fourth round if we don't do that in the first couple of rounds, and then I actually want a backup running back somewhere in this draft. I think it's a good draft to do it. So somewhere in rounds 4 to 7, I'd love to grab one of these running backs, throw them into the mix here, just kind of as injury and pipeline development kind of a thing. The needs again, real quick. Running back, not running back. Tight end is number one. I still think guard could be our third biggest need,
Mhm.
but we'll see how that goes. Uh, Edge is our second biggest need, but I don't feel obligated to take it if it doesn't fall that way. And then safety linebacker is really our fourth biggest need. That's it. That's our roadmap. We're not dead set on any one guy. We don't have our heart set on any one player, and I think that's a good spot to be in, especially considering the picks we've got.
All right, it's time for our favorite game. The game is Jim Irsay is on the line.
He's on the line a lot, I'll bet.
He's always on. He's there. He's sitting next to you. What does any of this do to help Anthony Rich help figure out our quarterback situation? I won't even say Anthony Richardson because I'm not convinced Irsay believes in Anthony Richardson at this point.
Okay.
What does any of this do to help our quarterback situation for 2024? I turned on some old Miss games on YouTube the other day. My grandson showed me how. This Jackson Dart kid is pretty fun. See Jalen Milrow ran a 4.4 40. Anything this Tyler Shuck kid. It's spelled like shoe, and we have a horseshoe logos or something there. Um, what's the deal with what this draft is going to do for quarterback?
Time out for a second. That was good, by the way, especially the horseshoe bit. Okay. Time in. Yes, sir, Mr. Older. Those are all legit questions. So first of all, we do feel like adding a tight end would really help here. We've got a decent, respectable group of receivers to work with here that do different things. I think Simon Shortt, who does the Simon Shortt and Friends podcast, he
Yeah,
often talks about building a basketball team as your wide receiver group.
I'm an avid
We've got
listener.
that. Yes, we've got quite a few, but still, the tight end spot would help us out a lot and would help Anthony out a lot. So help out the quarterbacks a good bit. So that would be number one. We do feel like the offensive line is continuing to be consistent and good. So, and then it being Anthony's third year, and then if Anthony gets injured again, having Daniel Jones back there, so we don't feel like there'll be as big of a fall off. So I feel like all of that is really going to put us in the right direction. Two, not getting in scoring battles hopefully as often as we have in the past couple of years will help
Mm-hmm.
Anthony not feel the pressure as much. I think collectively, all of that put together is going to help. But I will say, while I'm against drafting a quarterback because the media is going to be all over it and just crushing us for the Anthony thing, if you are, say, the owner are suggesting drafting a quarterback and that gives me some more time in the future as the Colts GM, then we'll draft a quarterback. And, Milrow, Ewers, Dart, whatever, we'll do it. So, maybe it is time to move forward if you think it's time to move forward a little bit here. So we don't mind taking the media hit if we know the owners, on board with this a little bit here. So
All right, good to know. Yeah, I think the tight end thing sounds good. This is Ursay and Simon talking. I think the tight end, they still have visions of Dallas Clark. They still have visions of that one good year of Eric Ebron. They still have visions of 2 good years of Jack Doyle out of nowhere. But mostly Dallas Clark. Uh, yeah, get a tight end. I think that's a must. So I think whether it's Warren or Loveland at 14 or one of those next three guys at 45, because I think those are dudes there too. I think tight end has to be one of those first two picks. If you're gonna if you're gonna go, let me now. Shane Steichen just hopped in. He walked in on the meeting room. If we're gonna go defense in the first round, we need somebody that can cause havoc and get after the quarterback and get the ball back to the offense as many times as possible. And I think that would be one of these hybrid linebacker edge rushers because we've got guys, right? But we need to get the most bang for our buck. So we've got edge rushers, we've got defensive tackles, but that defensive line's getting a little older. We have Laiatu Latu, but there isn't really anybody next to Zaire Franklin that we really like. So um, if Jalen Walker starts to fall for some reason, but Jihad Campbell I think comes into the conversation at 14 to kind of play linebacker next to Franklin, who's a good linebacker, and Campbell can just run and hit and then pass rush in certain situations. Um, I like a tight end or I like Campbell there at 14 because yes, I as Shane Steichen had Dallas Goddard, a tight end with the Eagles. So give me a tight end there, or give me that versatile linebacker. We drafted Georgia defensive players every year, so go get Jalen Walker out of Georgia. That seemed to work out pretty well. Um, yeah, that all sounds good.
yeah, agreed. And listen, when it comes to those linebackers, I don't think they necessarily fit everywhere because not everybody wants to try to figure out where to put them and how to develop them. But I think the Colts could do that. I think they have a spot that would work next to some pretty good veterans there, not only on the defensive line but at linebacker, like you mentioned, Zaire Franklin, who I love by the way. Um, but yeah, getting to work with that strength right there because I like Cleveland and Buckner up the middle at defensive tackle
Hmm.
for the Colts, and then you got Zaire Franklin and you got Leatu. Boy, dropping in a Campbell or a Jalen Walker, either one to that other kind of the other slot, I think they would really develop very well on the Colts, getting to work with those players.
So Ben's a dad, and not middle age, but he's an older gentleman.
Getting up there.
He just said Cleveland, and I know the defensive tackle he's talking about. His first name is Grover. Ben is thinking about the 22nd and 24th sitting U.S. President Grover Cleveland. You meant Grover Stewart, the nose tackle.
I did. Yes.
And
Well
and the best part
done.
is, I knew exactly what you were doing as soon as you said it. I was like, that was a president. So I had to warn Ben that he might have to send a Zoom link earlier tonight because I thought I was going to fall asleep at 9 because I didn't have my 6 p.m. coffee. So we're just a couple of old farts doing this. Ben, if the Colts were going to take an offensive lineman, because when Fries and Kelly got signed away to Minnesota in free agency, I know that Bortolini like played well for Kelly, so we know he's going to be the incumbent center. But I was like, okay, can offensive line get into the discussion for them? Who would you like for them at 14? I'm not even limiting you to picking a right guard. Like, what offensive lineman would you like, and then how would you move the pieces around?
Man, so
If
at
if
14,
Campbell and Membu are both gone, assuming Will Campbell and Armand Membu are both gone.
see, that's where I go right back, and I like the defensive players better. But let's play the game. Campbell and Mimbu both gone, which would really suck, by the way. I mean, dadgummit, it'd be like, man, what in the world? But that
Oh,
could
I know
very
who you're
well
gonna pick.
happen.
Hmm.
I think it would very well happen. If we're sitting at 14 trying to take an offensive lineman, I mean, it's going to be Simmons or Banks, and probably for me, Kelvin Banks
Hmm.
at 14. In my head, though, I'd rather just drop back to 36 and hope
Right.
for the Zabel, Connerly, Booker
Yeah.
triumvirate, one of those three. That would be my preference.
All right. I thought you were just gonna straight up pick Zabel, but I like that.
Well, I was, but you told me to go 14. I was like, man, I'm not sure I want Zabel at 14 when I've got the other juice sitting there, you know?
This is the team, and wasn't it Ballard that took Quentin Nelson at 6 or whatever to play guard? They could take Gray Zabel at
I
14.
would encourage, I would stand up and applaud. Yes.
Um. All right, that's great. That was the Colts. Good breakdown. Let's hit our
All right.
last AFC South team, and it's the Houston Texans. Buckle up, everybody. If you were sick of hearing us talk about offensive linemen, here we go. I'm actually not. Actually, I surprised myself a little bit here. So here it is. I'm GM of the Texans. Picks 25, 58, 79, 89, and then 166, 236, 241. Four picks in the top 100. And we have to get this offense up to par. This, despite CJ Stroud being like is this guy a top five quarterback after his rookie year? Still a top 10 quarterback after year two? This team was 23rd in offensive EPA per play last year. Three of my first four picks will be used on that side of the ball. I'm looking at a wide receiver, a running back, Ben, and an offensive lineman. Then a defensive tackle with one of the other picks in there because my interior defensive linemen are kind of old and, washed a little bit. Um, we just gave Cam Robinson $14 million. Casario did that on his way out. Kind of have to play that guy at left tackle for 2024 or 2025. Um, Pause on the game here, but Ben, when they traded Laramie Tunsil, I sent you a DM from I think it was a Houston Texans beat reporter that was like they're gonna move Titus Howard to left tackle. Like this guy thought he had the scoop, right? He was like they want to reconfigure this whole line,
Yeah.
and because they
Yeah.
also traded Kenyon Green in the same week, so they want Titus Howard to play left tackle because they want Blake Fisher to play right tackle. They liked Patterson at center and Scruggs at right guard, a swap they made in season, putting Scruggs at guard, and then I forget who the DM actually said. Was it Ingram or Lake? Oh, it was Laken Tomlinson because I signed Laken Tomlinson. They want to start Laken Tomlinson, and then they also traded for Ed Ingram, two of the worst starting guards in 2024. It's like, gosh, this is a horrible plan. Like Titus Howard, you've never played him at one spot, and now you're going to play him at a spot he hasn't played in like 4 years since you drafted or since you traded for Tunsil. And then they go and they get Cam Robinson. They're like, nah, never mind. Howard's still going to play guard. It's going to be the same offensive line as last year, except Cam Robinson in place of Laramie Tunsil, because that's definitely going to be good. That's definitely going to work. Now, if you want to tell me, hey, Bobby Slowick's out of there. This is going to be a new scheme, a new coaching staff, a new way of doing things. So yeah, you could take the hit on the offensive line, save some money, and get a couple picks, and it'll be fine. Nick Caley, he's got this. Uh, that was the guy I liked from the Rams and Patriots, I think. So I do think he'll be pretty good. But I have an offensive line that I kind of have to play the way it's laid out here, at least for a year. Robinson, Howard, Patterson, Scruggs, Fisher. I'm gonna add something in there to see if there's some competition, but really it's a plan for the future. So if I go offensive line, I'm leading toward the interior of the offensive line. Now I pick at 25, so I could take anybody at that point. There's no too early conversation happening here. But because I'm looking at a center guard, I'm comfortable waiting until the second or even third round to do that. because of what I already have on the roster. So all that's to say, wide receiver and running back are looking like they're going to be my first two picks in this draft. Jonathan and Hampton obviously won't be there at 25, let alone 58. But if Travion Henderson is there at 58, that's the pick. I mean, that's a dude. That like again, I've said this to Jaden Higgins, blocks. Like Henderson blocks, man. And he's got speed for days. He's a good pass catcher.
You know,
Um, Former teammate of CJ Stroud at Ohio State. Um, and in the first round, I'm potentially going with another teammate, Emeka Ibuka at wide receiver. Let's just put CJ Stroud in the most comfortable position he can be in, considering his offensive line isn't going to do that. Let's at least do that with the other players around him. Um, Stroud has a special connection with Tank Dell. We know that. We know what that looks like when Dell's on the field. Now, who knows when Tank Dell's going to be back on the field? And we saw what happened last year when Nico Collins got hurt, right? This offense like completely floundered without Nico Collins. So I need a wide receiver that's going to have like an immediate walk-in spark and connection with Stroud. So I'm looking at Ibuka. I'm looking at Travion Henderson back-to-back first two picks. And I mean, I like Iomenor at 25. I don't think this guy would be there, except in our mocks he keeps falling. I like Matthew Golden at 25. Like those would be decent. Those would be fine picks too. But I'm specifically looking at Ibuka and Henderson. Um, and then you get into the third round, fourth round. You plug in some offensive linemen, defensive tackles. You add to the corner depth, um, kind of later in day three. But those are the main things. This offense needs to get off the ground. The quarterback is too good, and he only has a couple more years of being cheap. Cannot waste any more time with having him on a rookie deal. And not only this, like the team underperforming, but the offense underperforming. And I'm not getting a like offensive line changing player at 25. I really like Josh Connerly, but where am I going to put him if I have to pay Cam Robinson $14 million this year? So going wide receiver round one, I'm going running back round two. Then I'll get in the trenches, interior offensive line, defensive tackle in the mid rounds.
phone's ringing.
Yes. Hello.
Yeah, D'Amico Ryan's here, head coach, man. What's up?
How's it going?
Listen, your plan to fix the offense and help CJ
Yeah.
Stroud, it's beautiful. I
Mm,
love it.
mm,
That's
mm.
perfect. I'm all on board, 100%. Like that's
Okay.
fantastic.
Great.
We need that. This is great. But listen, that first round pick, number 25, that's a defensive tackle, right? Because listen, Mike Vrabel and Mike McDonald, those couple of goofballs, they think they're going to build the best defense in football, and I got sad news for them. It ain't never going to happen. At least not while I'm alive in the NFL. And I'm going to build the best defense in football. I'm pretty darn close already because I'm just that good, and we got good people, and you've done a good job putting these people in place. But defensive tackle would really cap it off. Okay, so pick 25. That's Kenneth Grant. That's Walter Nolan. That's Derek Harmon. Right, one of those three guys. I just want to make sure we're clear on that.
Nope. That's going to be pick 79, and you're looking at a Deion Walker, Shamar Turner, Omar, Norman Lott.
Yeah,
There's
that's funny joke.
there's there's
Uh,
no there's absolutely no chance. There's
funny
absolutely
joke.
you're running out of moves, man. You fired your offensive coordinator this year. You think you get all of CJ Stroud's rookie deal if the offense continues to be bottom third in the league in EPA? Not a chance.
I'm gonna go talk to Cal. I'll be back. Click.
Just paid Derek Stingley, got you Aziz Al-Shaair, added Nick Neiman for some reason, got
Phone's
you
ringing.
Alabama linebackers out the wazoo. Daniil Hunter, we just paid again. Sit down. Take your Jaden Peavy and Kurt Hinish and be happy about it. Out of my
Phone's
face.
ringing again.
Okay, phone's ringing. Yeah.
This
Hmm.
is Cal McNair, the owner. I think I've
Okay.
got that right. Hey, listen, Nick. D'Amico's real upset. He wants that defensive tackle, but don't pay any attention to that. All right, me and you will talk him out of that. He's got enough to work with. I like your plan here to help CJ Stroud. That's what needs to happen. So keep it up. We'll D'Amico will get over it. Okay.
Excellent. Thank you.
All right. Just make sure. Great offense. Number one offense in the league next year, right?
Wait, what?
Yes. Good. Thanks. Bye.
Oh
uh,
no. Oh
hey,
no.
all right. I'm back in just normal Ben here.
Okay.
I'm a little surprised you went this direction. knowing
You're
you and
telling
your
me.
style.
You're
Okay,
telling
yeah,
me.
because not only the running back thing, but that you didn't go after the offensive line more aggressively here. But it makes sense. And whether you can actually get the specific players you named there, like with Ibuka or
Mm,
Henderson or ever who, it makes sense. That I'm going to come back to this offensive line in a second and talk to you and ask you about it, just kind of feeling our way through there real quick. But there are things to work with here on the offensive line. And while I don't think it'll be pretty as currently constructed, I think it is somewhat workable. And so, again, getting CJ people that he's comfortable with, whether it's handoff, throw to, whatever, blitz pickup, you name it, and you already have, I think that actually makes a lot of sense because they've got to do something here, whether it's the new OC who's doing it, or whether it's the GM who's doing it, or whether it's somebody's got to do something here because your ticket to Super Bowl success, which is what everybody in Houston is thinking right now, is CJ, right? So
hmm.
unless we unlock CJ Stroud again for year three, not much else is really going to happen other than a wild card exit, right?
Yep, exactly.
So the offensive line, real quick, I do want to ask you if it were you, who are the five you would want to see here? Because in my head, I think Houston's done a good job of drafting and developing decent guys while not superstars. But hey,
Hmm.
they're working on this. It just kind of feels to me like they really need another piece, one
Yep.
more good piece. But let's say it's just this group here. Who's kind of your five that you would want to see, and where would they be?
Tyler Booker is the easiest answer because like
Okay,
everything from a scouting intel perspective is he was the offense's Will Anderson at
okay,
Alabama over the last 5, 6 years. Or I should say in the past 5, 6 years. And D'Amico Ryan's being from Alabama or having gone to Alabama, I should say, and getting Will Anderson because of the leadership that he was, as well as the player that he is, the person that he is. And to get the offensive version of that is like culture building 101. It's team need 101. So Booker's the easy one. I love Connerly. I mean, I
yes.
might start Connerly straight up at left tackle over Cam Robinson today, but you
Well,
could, I don't know, you could try him at left guard and see what he's a good athlete. You could see what happens. You put him in that Kenyon Green role for a year and then put him at left tackle after that. Um, Patterson has done a decent job. He's been, it's funny, him and Drew Scruggs were taken in the same draft, and they were both projected to be like day three picks, but the Texans took Scruggs in the second round for some reason, but Patterson in sixth, but Patterson's just been better. Um, so I think you're fine at center. And Blake Fisher's still kind of TBD, but those are the main. It's Booker and it's Connerly, and then you could bet on the traits of a Simmons, but I'm not quite as high on that move. That'd be a Josh Simmons out of Ohio State, and then the names we mentioned. I love Donovan Jackson, Ohio State. I love Gray Zabel, North Dakota State. Um, I popped on some Ariante Ursary tape over the weekend for the first time. Finally got to watch a little bit of him, and I do like him. So if the offensive linemen go early and you kind of have to do something at 25. I don't think that'd be bad because I think he might be a better guard than even a Josh Connerly would. So if Ursary's playing left guard and then maybe gets to kick out the tackle at some point in his career, I don't think that's that bad. So those would be the main few.
I like it. Give me one second here. I'm looking for a name and left. But fair to say, in your opinion, because I think I feel this way, the offensive line at pick 79 is probably, I think you and
Mm,
I like the offensive lineman there better than what we think the cornerbacks
hmm.
will probably
Yes,
be there.
for
We,
sure.
we don't think that dries up as quick, right?
Especially because they need interior also. It's not when it's not
Yes.
just they need a
Marcus
left
Bowe
tackle.
out of Purdue, perhaps, if he's still there by
Oh yeah, I
chance.
like him. I
Yeah.
like him.
Why? I mean, somebody's got to drop. That's the curious thing about this draft. Just me and you talking here. Everybody keeps saying there's no way this guy is at that spot, right? But
Hmm.
there's going to be somebody's got to drop.
There's
There's
a Rasheed Walker in the seventh round in every
yeah,
year, right? That's the one that always sticks with me. I'm like, how did
yeah.
like that guy should have been a second round pick. He was a second round pick until April of that year, and now he's a starting left tackle for the Packers, and he's good. So
Yes,
yeah,
yeah.
there's always a guy.
Okay, all right. I think that's it on my side.
All right, we are going to take a quick break, and then we'll be back to do the NFC South right after this.